Looking at Japan from the outside, you will see advanced technology, rich history, enthralling culture, famous food and pop culture taking over the world. To many, it's a dreamland, and in a lot of ways, it is. But there is another, much darker side to both history and life in Japan today. Unbeknownst to most of the world, Japan has millions of people who, while genetically identical to the rest of the population, have been excluded from society. Without access to jobs, marriages, and means to live a normal and happy life, they are known as Burakumin, the Untouchables, and they make up almost 2% of the country's population. Their sad story is one of Japan's shameful past and its worrying present. This is the dark history of Japan, the Untouchables. We begin with the term Burakumin, which actually describes two fundamentally different historical groups known as Eta and Hinin. Eta meaning defiled and Hinin meaning non-human. Eta has its roots in Japan's native belief system Shinto, which focuses heavily on principles of purity and defilement. The word for defilement and pollution, kegare, is especially important. You can become polluted through your own actions, the actions of others, or even happenstance. Common causes of kegare include death, crime, childbirth, disease, and even menstruation. Kegare can be removed through purification rites, which is important as kegare can have an adverse effect not only on the individual, but their entire community. Which brings us back to Eta. They are the ones who, by the nature of their jobs, were perpetually receiving kegare. These were jobs like leather workers, butchers, undertakers, and the like, occupations that directly or indirectly came into contact with death or blood. Following the emergence of Buddhism in Japan around the 7th century, Shinto's idea of pollution from death was combined with the Buddhist prohibition on taking life, making Eta twice as condemned. Given Eta's perpetual pollution, Eta and their areas were avoided, but they were still able to move and change occupation, for now. Entering the Edo period, Confucian ideas were implemented when developing Japan's feudal system. This led to the classification of citizens and social classes. The issue was that not all citizens fell within the classifications. Hinin, non-humans, was a term referring to beggars, prostitutes, street performers, and criminals. Hinin, along with Eta, were classless and seen as existences beneath the system, and they were now grouped together as the Eta Hinin. An important distinction was that Eta became a hereditary and inescapable status, whereas one could both become a Hinin if, for example, guilty of a crime, or inversely be raised to a higher status as a commoner. Eta Hinin were made to wear special clothes indicative of their lower status and were limited in both occupation and social interactions. They were made to live outside the city walls away from the higher classes in isolated hamlets. These hamlets were referred to as buraku, so the inhabitants came to be referred to as Burakumin. Hamlet people. From their isolated hamlets, they were made to play vital roles in maintaining public safety as executioners, security, and in suppressing riots. All positions intended to use existing prejudices against Burakumin to make them the target of public discontent instead of the government. With the introduction of the class system, Burakumin were now discriminated against socially, religiously, and even societally. Following the Meiji Restoration in 1868, the prior system of class was abolished, but as part of the new system were classifications such as former Eta and new commoners. Essentially, ways to continue differentiating Burakumin from commoners. Then, in 1871, the government made a pronouncement in the form of the Emancipation Edict, which stated, "The terms of address of Eta, Hinin, and so on are hereby dismantled, and from hence no status will be designated by occupation." As people were freed from their occupations, capital was also freed, and commoners entered the leather production market at the expense of the Eta. Non-Burakumin business people with political contracts occupied the leather market, and to this day, non-Burakumin hold the main capital in the leather-related industries. As Burakumin lost their jobs, with limited opportunities elsewhere, they experienced even greater poverty and worse conditions. This inevitably pushed some to crime when they had nowhere else to go, which in turn worsened their image even further. It is estimated that as much as 1/3 of the Yakuza today are Burakumin. Over the next many decades, various terms for Buraku, most notably Tokushu Buraku, Tokushu meaning special or special species. This was an accepted practice until the National Levelers Association, founded by Burakumin, designated it as a derogatory term in 1922, reducing its usage to only Buraku. Following World War II in 1946, Buraku liberation movements united into the National Committee for Buraku Liberation, which later changed to its current name. the Buraku Liberation League. The National Committee for Buraku Liberation demanded that local government improve the living conditions of Buraku areas, which were extremely poor. This became a movement which in 1965 led to the Cabinet Doha Policy Council, stating that solving the Buraku problem was a state responsibility. The committee, and subsequently the Buraku Liberation League, successfully facilitated the national government to consecutively enact laws to improve the living conditions of Buraku areas. Anti-discrimination education was also introduced in schools, but discrimination itself was not made illegal. For decades, companies would exchange books containing the names and addresses of Burakumin to avoid hiring them. But between 1969 and 2002, the government enacted various measures which significantly decreased Buraku discrimination. In early 2016, publisher Jigensha published a list with the names and addresses of Burakumin on the internet, damaging hiring and marriage prospects for those listed. The Buraku Liberation League and others fought for years to have it taken down, which concluded in a 2021 Tokyo court order to partially take down the list. This is even though, as recently as December of 2016, the Japanese parliament took what looked to be a significant step forward in addressing the Burakumin issue, when they passed a law that made it illegal to discriminate against Burakumin. Sadly, violations of this law won't be punished, and as such, discrimination continues, as in the case of a former network TV announcer who intended to run for an upper house election as recently as 2019, where he made a discriminatory remark at a political meeting and uploaded the video to YouTube, speaking of Etahinin in the Edo period as subhuman sex criminals. And while that is in the extreme, Burakumin do experience discriminatory graffiti and even letters, but today, most Buraku discrimination does take place online. According to the Japanese Ministry of Justice, since 2017, the majority of human rights violations have been online. This is the same for Buraku discrimination. According to Tsuyoshi Yamaguchi, the head of the Liberal Democratic Party's subcommittee on Burakumin issues, to meaningfully hinder discrimination today, the Ministry of Justice must be given the authority to issue takedown orders of online discriminatory posts. But perhaps the most striking story is the story of Kazuo Ishikawa, which near perfectly sums up the Burakumin issue over time. In 1963, at the age of 24, he was supposedly made to confess to a murder he didn't commit by the police. He claimed that, given his destitute upbringing, he only really learned how to read and write from a detention center employee following his imprisonment. And only then, through reading, did he come to understand the nature of his ancestry, being a Burakumin, and the true reason he had been framed. Since being paroled and freed in 1994, after 31 years in prison, he has been continually, and is still to this day, fighting for a retrial to clear his name. The reason some people avoid Burakumin in instances such as marriage today likely isn't strictly discriminatory, but out of fear that marrying a Burakumin could negatively impact not only the partner, but the lives of their family and future children as well. According to a 2014 survey, 1 in 10 people would have reservations about their child marrying a Burakumin. But with nearly half responding that they wouldn't mind, things are moving in the right direction. So with both policies and public opinion changing for the better, things are improving for the Burakumin, albeit slowly.